Seasonal allergies can be a miserable existence for your clients, and when you can help a client move past an issue they've been dealing with for maybe a lifetime, you're really going to be their favorite person. Especially nowadays when they go to the store with allergies, people are going to look at them like they're sick. They're going to get dirty looks because they think they're going to pandemic all over their face in the checkout line at the grocery store. So this can be a big deal. But to help your clients move past seasonal allergies, you really need to understand the underlying cause of seasonal allergies. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
Now, most of your clients will be told that their seasonal allergies are a genetic issue, and their mom had allergies, so they're going to have allergies. And sure, there's a little bit of truth to that genes can push a person to be predisposed to have allergies, but it's really about where the person's body chemistry is, and it's often about how is their digestion functioning that can dictate whether or not they're going to have allergies. Now, to understand the connection between seasonal allergies and digestion, we first need to understand the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system is a system that kind of runs a lot of things behind the scenes, and it takes care of a lot of tasks without the person having to actually think about them. So it's a lot of involuntary things like, your heart beating and the rate the respiratory system is working and stuff like that. So it's a lot of involuntary actions that the autonomic nervous system is in charge of. And there's two sides to this system. There's a sympathetic side, which is our fight or flight state, and there's a parasympathetic side, which is our rest and digest state. So both states are appropriate and necessary for the body to really function optimally, and the body will move back and forth between these states as needed, and everything will be great and it'll all work well. The problem is a lot of people can get stuck a little too far or a little too long or often in one state more than the other. And if a person is stuck in one state more often, it can create a lot of symptoms and problems. And like a person can get stuck in that sympathetic fight or flight state from being too stressed too often. And it could be stress in their life, or it could be stress in their body that's pushing their physiology into a fight or flight state. And when someone is stuck in this sympathetic state too far, it can kind of make them fly out the handle a little bit too easily. All of a sudden they're yelling at the mailman because they don't like their shorts, and they're like, wow, I probably shouldn't yell at the mailman. That was a little bit stupid to do. But they often can't help it. They're just pushed so far into that fight or flight state that they're kind of on the edge. Now, on the other side, a person can also get stuck on the parasympathetic rest and digest state. Now, what we see when people are experiencing what we call a parasympathetic imbalance, where they're pushed too far in that state, is they'll most commonly see either seasonal allergies or asthma. And when a client comes to you with seasonal allergies or asthma, you're often going to see them dealing with the parasympathetic imbalance. When you look at their physiology, you're going to see them leaning that way. Now, one thing to understand is that allergy medications work by pushing a person out of this parasympathetic state. They push them further into this sympathetic state. So if you look at their physiology and they're like, oh, you don't look like you should have allergies, you don't look like you're stuck in this parasympathetic state, and you ask them, are you taking allergy medications? And if they are, then all of a sudden it makes sense. So the reality is that they probably are stuck in that parasympathetic state, but the medication is making them present themselves as if they're not. Now, how this parasympathetic state relates back to digestion is that the parasympathetic state is the rest and digest state. Now, it's really common to see clients that don't have their digestion working correctly. You need to be able to acidify your food properly in the stomach, and the stomach needs to be making enough hydrochloric acid to properly acidify our food. And then once the food's acidified, it needs to leave the stomach, and then the gallbladder needs to squirt bile, alkaline bile, down onto this acidic product, and the alkaline meeting the acid creates this sizzle that really busts the food apart and helps us get all the nutrients out of that food. But it's really common for someone not to be making enough stomach acid, and it's really common for someone's bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly. So if either of those sides of digestion are not working optimally, you don't get that sizzle and you don't have the ability to pull all the nutrients out of the food you're eating. It's the nutrients that your body's looking for. It's not just looking for food. We need the nutrients so everything can operate correctly. So if a person's digestion is not functioning optimally, the body will be like, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we shove this body as far into this parasympathetic rest and digest state that we can in an effort to maximize digestion in any way that we can. So if the digestion isn't working correctly, we can push the body as far into that digestion state to maximize the ability to get nutrients out of the food that we're eating. So the body really is trying to help out. The problem is when this person moves way into this parasympathetic state, they're going to experience the symptoms like either asthma or seasonal allergies. Now there's some markers that you can look at with a client to see if they appear to be pushing too far into this parasympathetic state. And we teach how to run all these tests with clients, and we even teach you how to show clients how to run these tests at home with simple tools that they can pick up at a pharmacy or a health food store. And we teach you how to do that in all of our courses for health professionals, but we also teach it in my book, Health Pro Results. So I'll put a link down below where you can download that book for free and you can learn more about any of these tests. But I'll tell you a little bit about some of those right here. The first thing you can do is you can look at a client's blood pressure. And when you look at a blood pressure and you get that systolic top number and the diastolic bottom number, then you can run a formula to figure out what their pulse pressure is. So a pulse pressure is when you take the systolic number and you subtract the diastolic number. The resultant is what we call the pulse pressure. So if that pulse pressure number is below 37, that's a strong marker that the person is probably leaning too far on that parasympathetic side. You can also look at their pupils, and if pupils are small, that's also a parasympathetic marker. You can ask a client if they have a strong gag reflex, like if you're brushing your teeth and that toothbrush goes a little bit too far back, do you gag? And if they say yes, that can be another marker of a parasympathetic imbalance. There's also another advanced test that you can do with that blood pressure formula where you can look at a client's breath rate. And their breath rate you can take easily by just counting the number of inhales that they have in 60 seconds. So however many times they breathe in a minute is what you're looking for. And you can take that pulse pressure number and you can divide it by their breath rate. And if that resultant is less than 2, that's a strong indication of a parasympathetic imbalance. So there's a variety of markers that you can look at, and most people aren't going to have every single marker pointing towards one direction, but some will. But if more markers point towards the parasympathetic side than not, then that can be an indication that the person may be dealing with a parasympathetic imbalance. Just keep in mind that you want to ask, are you on any type of allergy medications? Because if they are, they may not present as a parasympathetic imbalance because the medication is pushing them into that sympathetic state. So then you might look at the numbers and be like, well, these numbers look more sympathetic, but that's just because they're on those medications that are pushing them in that direction. Now, fixing any digestive issues is always going to be the first goal when someone is dealing with a parasympathetic imbalance because you want to help the body digest food the way that it should so that it doesn't say, well, I'm just trying to help out and push as far into that rest and digest state as I can. If the digestive system is functioning correctly, then the body won't need to do that. And that seems to be the best way to improve a parasympathetic balance and seasonal allergies. So if a client is dealing with any symptoms like burping or bloating or nausea or acid reflux, constipation, diarrhea, maybe even skin issues like acne, if they're dealing with anything kind of digestive discomfort, then that's a really strong sign that either one or both sides of digestion are not working correctly. And you're going to want to help them take steps to improve those issues so that they can digest their food the way that we're intended to digest it. But even while you're helping someone improve digestion, there are some supplements that can be used that can help push a person out of this parasympathetic state. The problem is you really need to know where a client's physiology is so that you're not using something that can push them less parasympathetic, but at the same time maybe magnify another imbalance that they're dealing with. That's why we really don't like to see coaches or health professionals using remedies to treat symptoms, because most symptoms can have a variety of underlying causes, and you really want to look at the person to help deal with the imbalance that may be causing that issue. So some of the supplements that can be beneficial are some amino acids. L-phenylalanine is a great one, and so is L-tyrosine. Now, both of these can also lift blood pressure, so you wouldn't want to use these with someone who already has high blood pressure. But these supplements can also push a person more into what we call a catabolic state. So in our books, we explain this catabolic and anabolic imbalances, and that's just a state at the cellular level where a person moves through their circadian rhythm correctly. But if they have an imbalance, they may be stuck on one side. So you can learn more about that in the free book that I talked about in the description, where you can click on that link to get it below. But if someone is leaning too far into this catabolic state, you wouldn't want to use L-tyrosine or L-phenylalanine, because that's going to push them more catabolic. But another amino acid, glutamine, can also help push someone out of a parasympathetic state, but this supplement will push someone farther into that anabolic state. So if someone was already leaning too anabolic, or they were dealing with constipation issues, you wouldn't want to use glutamine with them, because that could make their situation much worse. So you can see that there's a variety of supplements that can be used to help fix this parasympathetic imbalance, but you really want to look at where the client is to understand which one's going to be more effective or not cause more trouble. Just remember that the main goal is to fix any digestive issues, and that's often going to bring the person out of that severe parasympathetic state. And if you don't understand how to look at digestion, or how to figure out which aspects of digestion may not be working well, you'll find that in chapters 3 and 4 in that Health Pro Results book that you can download for free in the description below. So check that out, and what else might help you right now is to go through our playlist for helping clients optimize digestion. That'll give you a lot more insights there. I can't wait to hear about your results.